Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll be your host, Benny Ricciardi, and I am very excited today. I am back from Vegas. I am still a little bit hungover and definitely sleep deprived. But I got my man Duke here today, and we got two important things to talk about. As always, we're going to give you guys the soccer analysis at the beginning. But being that him and I are both fight fans, and he's going to be on later with our combat sports expert Mad Lab breaking down all these fights for this weekend in the UFC, we're going to talk a little UFC action. But first, let me see how he's doing this morning. Duke, what's going on, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. It is a beautiful Friday here in Atlanta. We've had nothing but rain all week. And next week's going to be cold for us down south. So we're going to enjoy this weekend, but not before we get, at least a few bets in for some soccer action. And, of course, the big night tomorrow night with UFC.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great betting day tomorrow because we got a lot of college basketball games. I'll have the college basketball stuff up in the package. Before I go to bed tonight, I'll throw in the bet that we're going to talk about here in a minute on soccer. And then tomorrow night, we got all the UFC action going. You can take that money and then parlay it over into Sunday for some NFL action. So busy weekend, and I love it.
And look, you should be freaking loaded right now. 8-1 I was this week for soccer alone. I know Frank went 7-1 Wednesday, I want to say, for college basketball and NBA. I mean, all our guys are smashing it right now. So you should have nothing but change in your pockets to go have a little fun this weekend.
Yep, and again, we did discount that down, so get over to www.elitesportsbetting.com. You can pick up a package. I recommend the VIP package. Try it out for a month. You get all the sports that we're doing, so you'll be able to bet the soccer picks, some of the stuff we talk about here today with Duke. You'll be able to bet college basketball and NBA stuff that we got going up with 4 or 5 guys putting in picks every day over there. And then at night, you get the MMA stuff. The Mad Lab breakdown alone for the fight is going to be worth the price of admission, and you can make your money back in one weekend of betting UFC stuff. Plus, we got football action as well going in there. College being done, but NFL action still going on. We got esports, we got golf, we got everything that you're looking for. So there's really no reason.
I was going to say, screw the monthly package. Just do the yearly. You get the breakdown, the discount over the monthly package. Obviously, the daily package is available. The Fight Pass for this weekend is available. But get the yearly package. Save yourself some money. Make your money back in the first weekend. If you don't, Benny Ricciardi will refund every dollar you spent.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Vegas wasn't that kind to me this week, so we'll see what happens there. But anyway,
let's talk a little soccer.
Let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit of soccer here. As we always do, we usually start off with the early Saturday morning game. This way, anybody on the East Coast like myself and you can put these bets in before we go to bed. And even if you decide to sleep in a little bit on Saturday, you can wake up with some money in your account. So what are we looking at for the early game on Saturday?
It's a tradition unlike any other here, Benny. We got the 7:30 a.m. game, Watford hosting Tottenham Hotspur. Watford plus 225, Tottenham plus 125. You may look at that and think that's kind of a wonky line, but dig a little deeper. Nigel Pearson's come in. Watford has turned things around. It's really Watford and Southampton, who we'll talk about here in just a little bit, who are kind of two of the hottest teams in the Premier League. Pearson's really done a good job of organizing this team. He's got Decore pushing further up the field, kind of playing that number 10 playmaking role. Good for two things. Obviously, he helps the attack, but he's kind of that tip of the spear defensively as well to kind of organize the middle of that field there. So, and then obviously we have Tottenham, who have their own set of issues. They haven't kept a clean sheet since Jose's come in the Premier League. Kane's out. Dele Alli's form has dipped. Eriksen looks like he's off to Italy to go play for Inter. I do think, they're the favorite here. I do think Tottenham can score a goal. I certainly think Watford can score a goal. So my initial reaction was to look towards both teams to score, yes. It's juiced to minus 155. I may still hit that, but I don't mind the over 2.5 goals here at minus 120 because I do think we get a winner. But I'm gonna ask you, Benny. What do you think about this game in general? And before you go, one other thing. Like I mentioned how hot Watford is. They've won 4 of their last 5, and the 4th game was a draw against Sheffield United. So, they've been playing well, but one of those wins was against Wolves at home. They won 2-1. Wolves outshot them 16-9. Wolves had 64% possession. They had 7 corners to Watford's 4. Wolves were creating chances they just couldn't finish. So, I think that's why I think both teams to score is kind of my initial reaction. But what are you thinking on this game?
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. I think that's better taking the minus 120 than going the minus 155 on both to score. Listen, early in the year when we first started talking, soccer, I was telling you, one of the ways I was making a lot of money was just betting against Watford because they give up a lot of goals and they couldn't score. But you mentioned it. It hasn't worked out well lately. I mean, they have turned things around. They've looked a lot better. I think they've actually even taken themselves out of the basement where they're not in relegation range anymore, right?
They are in 17th place, just out of relegation after their win last weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously they're moving up at this point. Again, they still got to keep it going. I mean, 17th place means you're right on the cusp there. So one or two more slip ups and they could be right back worrying about fighting for their lives. But this was a team at the beginning of the year that I was picking on and making money. It hasn't worked out lately, and the reason for that is they look a lot better on basically both ends of the pitch. So I think Tottenham still has a lot of talent on that team, so I think they'll be able to get a goal. I think Watford's going to get a goal on them because, like you mentioned, they can't stop anybody. They've been giving up goals too. So I like this over 2.5 for -120. I mean, you bet 100, you get back about 80 cents on the dollar there. It's a lot better than taking both teams to score at -155. At -155, you're betting $1 to get like 60 cents back on the dollar. And that's, it's not bad, but it's not really the way I want to go about doing it. I want a little more bang for my buck, a little better return if I'm going to be, kind of taking something like that. So for me, I think the over 2.5 -120 is the way I'm going to play this.
Yeah, when I typically look for both teams to score opportunities, I'm looking at the away team first, right? We assume that the home team, almost regardless of who's playing, is going to have some chances, some of the ball, going to be pushing for the result. You have to get points at home to stay in this league. And so when you look at a team like Tottenham, in general, you would think, yes, let's hit this because Watford, if they can create chances, they may finish one. We know Tottenham's going to score, but with no Kane and Ollie's dipping form and Eriksen maybe not even playing because he's off, I could be worried about that. So the juice might be a little high, like you said. That's why I'm looking towards the total. On the side, I don't know that I'm touching this. This could be an in-game opportunity because I'm that psychopath who wakes up, plays DFS, watches these games live. And if there is something that pops up in-game, I'll let y'all know. But even looking towards the goal line, Tottenham plus or minus a half a goal, plus 120. So it's not much different from the three-way line. And then, of course, you can get Watford plus half a goal at minus 145. It's still Watford. They've been great, but it's still Watford. So I'm not sure I'm trusting my money with that. So that's kind of why I ended up on that over 2.5. And it sounds like we agree on that.
Yeah, and, it's interesting to see that both teams are plus money to get a win here. And that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the form, that Watford's in much better form than they've been in because, Tottenham's not a minus 400. And the fact that Tottenham's not in very good form is the reason why they're not like minus 300 or minus 400. Normally, when you have one of the teams at the top of the table taking on one of the teams at the bottom of the table and they're at home, that's normally a -2, minus 300 situation. So to have both of these teams at plus money and, basically the books thinking that this is probably going to end 1-1 or something like that, I don't know. I'm a little worried about a side too. I mean, if I had to take one, I'd take Watford because you're getting plus 250 on them, but I don't think I'm touching it that way, to be honest.
I mean, think about these teams 12 months ago. I mean, Watford finished 11th in the league. We're cruising with Javi Garcia in charge. Obviously, Pochettino, I can't remember what they finished, 3rd, 4th last year in the league, go to the Champions League final. Now Watford's on their 3rd manager of the season. Jose Mourinho's been brought in for the fired Pochettino. This is a crazy world we're playing in.
Hey, that's what happens. That's the soccer world for you. So we got we got some other stuff going on Saturday as well. So how else can we make some more money that we can spend on UFC fights later on? What else you got for me?
I don't love this slate of games at 10 o'clock, to be honest with you, but there are a couple opportunities that I'm looking at. First and foremost, Sheffield is getting half a goal at plus 105 against Arsenal. Arsenal hosting that game, minus 120 to win. Sheffield plus 335. Not sure I can get there just to take Sheffield outright. Mm-hmm. I like what Mikel Arteta has done for Arsenal since he came in. He's shown the ability to adjust in-game, but in the 3 games I've watched him manage, he's had to adjust in-game because he set the team up incorrectly. You just go back to their match against Leeds United, who I think we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. Quality side, but they're a second-tier side, and bossed the game against Arsenal. Arteta goes in at halftime, flips some things around, and gets a good result there. But the fact of the matter is, Aubameyang suspended for this game. Sheffield's a pretty damn good team. They've shown that, right? They're sitting, fifth in the table, 6th in the table right now, Man United in 5th. Woo! But I don't mind this as a close scoring game. I mean, the under is juiced on a 2.5 in a game with Arsenal. That's all you need to know about how Sheffield tries to play. So I think either Nelson or Martinelli come in to fill that spot vacated by Aubameyang, two very good, very promising players. But that's what they are, and they're going to be inconsistent. We don't really know what we're going to get from them. Maybe Arsenal needs that a little bit. They need a little bit of that naivety to just go in and play without overthinking things. So I can see this being a 1-0 game, even a 0-0 draw, something like that. I mean, Sheffield's played 11 away matches this year. They lost to Liverpool. They lost to City. They drew against Chelsea, Wolves, and Tottenham. They play well against the top half of this team. They're literally like Wolves were last year. And against the bottom half of the table, they've gone 3-0-3. So 3 wins, 3 draws, no losses. They've scored in every away match except for one, which was a 0-0 draw with Watford. And their 2 losses were against the top 2. Look, defense travels. So I don't mind Sheffield. Actually, in fact, I like Sheffield plus a half a goal, getting plus money here.
Okay, so plus a half a goal was plus 105. That's what you were saying?
It is.
All right. I like that. I don't mind that at all, actually.
I prefer that to betting the draw. So if you bet a draw, so what we're banking on here, obviously, is Sheffield to win or the game finishes in a draw. We win both of those scenarios. If we just bet the draw, we get plus 255. It just literally moved up to plus 260 as we're talking. But that's one of 3 outcomes that can happen. And so I'd rather not pay that. I'll take the plus 105. I had it at minus 110, minus 115. So see a little bit of value there on this. So let's take that.
All right. I like it. Now, that's the only one that you like for Saturday, you said, or the Saturday games?
I do. There's another game, and I mentioned them earlier. Don't laugh. But I think Southampton, outside of City and Liverpool, is the hottest team in the Premier League. They've won 4 of their last 5 games. They had a draw with Palace, kind of sandwiched in the middle there. They beat Leicester and Tottenham in back-to-back games. 3 of their last 4 wins have been away from home. They are absolutely flying. So obviously, to win games, they're scoring goals, which was their issue early on. But I love what they've done on the defensive side of the ball, Benny. They shut out Tottenham. Chelsea's no easy task. In general, their home form hasn't been great, but their away games that they've brought them to glory have been against pretty damn good teams. So dig a little deeper on the numbers here. 7 of their 11 home matches have been against the top half. If you count the 11th place team, right? So in the second half, I'm buying Southampton stock, basically is what I'm trying to tell you. Because in the second half of the season, all these home games that they're going to have are going to be against the bottom half of the table. They may have 1 or 2 against the top half thrown in there. But, I mean, they're playing Wolves. If I haven't mentioned that yet, Wolves had to play a midweek replay FA Cup game against Man United. They're a team who don't rotate their side ever, basically. They played a full-strength side on Wednesday. I just think this is a situation that sets up perfectly for a team on the rise in Southampton and a team who's played a bunch of games with the same players, who isn't in the best of form in Wolves, where the line movement has been insane on this game. Right now it's Southampton plus 140, Wolves plus 205. It opened reversed. Wolves opened at plus 140. Okay. And Southampton were at 205, something like that.
So are you thinking this is because of the midweek game that people think they may be a little tired, and that's why it's kind of switching which side's the more favored side, I'd say?
I think it's the market correcting a bad line, honestly. Okay. I don't often see, like I've said a million times, I'm a wait for team news guy. I'll sacrifice a little closing line value to guarantee I'm betting the right team that I want to bet on. We just had announced today for Everton, Sigurdsson's out and Richarlison's out. If I'm trying to grab closing line value and getting Everton on Wednesday, and then I find out on Friday their 2 best attacking players aren't going to play, I'm going to be a little pissed because the line's going to move in the opposite direction. So I think this was just a bad line in the market correcting themselves, combined with the fact that they had the midweek game. They played a full-strength side. They lost that game. There's a lot of factors that are going into it. So I like Southampton to win.
That plus 140 is on the 3-way line, right?
It's on the 3-way line.
All right, so 3-way line, Southampton plus 140. Another one that Duke likes and is getting down on today. Is there any Sunday games this week that you're looking at, or you want to talk some MMA?
There's one that unfortunately we'll be looking at. One last note on Wolves here. Both teams have scored in 77% of their away matches. Pretty high. It's well over the league average. So if you want to look towards the total, you can. The under's juiced. I'd rather just take Southampton at plus 140 to win outright. But Sunday, the big matchup, Liverpool hosting Manchester United. I do not have a play on this just yet. Quite honestly, I'm leaning towards Liverpool, but at minus 250. Am I really going to pay that juice to beat my own team? Probably not at this point. But come Sunday, we'll know more about Marcus Rashford's health If he's not in, I don't think there's any chance Manchester United competes. They have done well against the big six, if you will, but this has loss written all over it, Benny.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the countering and how that kind of works out better for them when they're playing some of these better teams, but part of that is also Rashford being in there and being the guy at the head of that counter. So I don't really know if I'm going to be touching this one either. I hate to say it because I know you're a Man U guy, but if I was forced to bet this game, I would probably be on the Liverpool side. But minus 250, not really going to be messing around with that. It's not enough money for me to really want to get involved, to be honest.
No, and we may have a play. I mean, look, I'm not opposed to betting against my team to make money. Let me get that out there for sure. But at this point on a Friday when the game's on a Sunday and we have one major piece of health news, let alone whatever Liverpool could do, there's too many variables to make a firm decision right now. So wait for Saturday or Sunday. And of course, all these picks we're talking about now, except for the Saturday morning pick, the 7:30, are subject to change. If team news pops in that totally affects everything we've talked about thus far, I'll be in the chat. I'll update the bet pack. It's important to get over there, subscribe to EliteSportsBetting.com to have all these updates Saturday morning.
Yeah, and also, I mean, every Saturday you're going to find Duke over in the soccer chat, whether it be over at Elite Sports Betting or over at Elite Fantasy, depending on what time of day it is, and which one of those are the more pressing issue at the moment once everything comes out. So
we've been crushing DFS too. I mean, this is a betting show, but we've been crushing DFS on the soccer side.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's a smaller market than a lot of the other things, so you don't have a lot of the guys with the big optimizers coming in there and kind of running roughshod over some of those tournaments. You got a good chance to make some money. I had a couple good cashes earlier in the year, basically using all of Duke's information right now and kind of putting it together with some of the things I know for myself. So you can check that out too over at Elite Fantasy. Speaking of things over at Elite Fantasy, here's the segment.
Let's go.
I've been waiting to talk a little bit of MMA here today. So first off, I know you and Mad Lab are going to be doing a little bit of a podcast today. So why don't you let everybody know about that? And I don't want to give away everything that you guys are going to be talking about today. So when you're done telling everybody where they can find that podcast, we're going to talk about one fight and one fight only, but it's the one everybody wants to talk about anyway because I want to give my thoughts on it. So go ahead.
It's the big boys banging Conor McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone. But yeah, Lab, if you haven't yet, obviously Mad Lab is our combat expert, boxing, MMA, anything that involves throwing your fist, he knows everything about. I say it a million times. I was a follower of Mad Lab before I worked for EliteFantasy.com, basically tailed all his picks. But I've been a huge fan myself for, 15 years or so at this point now. And he and I are jumping on the Labology podcast, which you can find over at EliteFantasy.com, focused more on the daily fantasy side of things, big contests over on DraftKings and FanDuel and SuperDraft and some other things as well for this weekend's action. So we're going to do that here later this morning. Should be out for you guys this afternoon.
All right, so here we go. We talked about it, the big fight going up. Here's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, if you guys don't know anything about the UFC, it's a business, right? And when you have a business, you got to have your big draws. And Conor McGregor always has been one of the biggest draws that the UFC
The biggest.
The biggest draw. Okay, we could even go. You know what? You're probably right. He has been the biggest draw for the UFC, over the course of time. They want nothing more than to see this guy get back to his glory because him and his glory means a lot more eyes of the casual fan. The casual fan right now probably couldn't even tell you who holds the belt at whatever weight, but they know who Conor McGregor is. Now, Cowboy is a guy who's been around for a while. He's probably towards the end of his career. He's still very good. I mean, he's still not a bad fighter, although he is coming off, I think, one loss, maybe even two in a row at this point.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big payday for him. I just kind of feel like they're setting this up for McGregor to go out there in his kind of like comeback fight and knock Cerrone out and start building up a little bit of buzz. Now, Cerrone, though, is a veteran and somebody who, I don't see him laying down like a lot of people are saying he might in this fight. Mm-hmm. I just don't see him do it. If you followed his career, if you know the kind of guy he is, that's just not the kind of guy he is. So the way I'm looking at this, Duke, I think if this is a fight that's set up just as a gimme for Conor McGregor to kind of get back on track, then McGregor's going to wind up knocking him out in the first or second round. But if Cerrone can do what he should do, which is basically kind of let McGregor gas himself a little bit early and then see if he can take this fight down to the mat, where I think is where he has the advantage, I wouldn't be shocked if Cerrone gets a choke on him in the third or fourth round as this fight starts getting a little bit on and Conor starts getting a little tired. So what I'm looking to do, I'm taking Conor in the early rounds, probably the first and second for a knockout. But if it gets past the second, I'm going to start looking to see if I can in-game Cerrone on a submission at some point in the last couple rounds, see what kind of odds I can get on that. Because to me, I think the fight goes one of those two ways.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, quite honestly, Benny. And, obviously getting prepped for this podcast with Mad Lab, I want to sound knowledgeable, right? I want to know my stuff with the GOAT. So I went back and watched the last 4 fights for each of these guys. And specifically, you look at the weight difference between Cowboy Cerrone and McGregor's true weight, which is really probably 155. I know Lab says 145. I think he's a 155 fighter. But against Diaz, the second fight, I was watching that last night. I mean, Conor fought a smart fight. He came out, he was pacing himself, he was slipping punches, throwing counters, going to the body a little bit, beat the crap out of Diaz's leg, which is exactly what Gaethje did to Cowboy when he knocked him out too, was get that lead leg. But he gassed pretty quickly. Obviously, came back, won the fight in a decision, maybe a little slightly controversial decision, but Conor's landing these clean shots, and Diaz isn't going down. But here's the big deal. Diaz is too dumb to be knocked out. He's just simply too dumb to be knocked out. So you cannot say, look, he can't knock anybody out. Look, he didn't knock out Nate Diaz. Give me a break, man. This is Cowboy Cerrone. And look, Cerrone was knocked out by Darren Till, but Darren Till's probably 50 pounds heavier than Conor McGregor. We're just walking around weight before he cuts. Knocked out by Gaethje, but Gaethje's a monster too. I mean, I think Conor can get it done. To your point, I do not think Cowboy's just going to lay down. I do think the UFC said this is Cowboy who's been a good servant for us. He deserves a big payday. It's more likely than not he's going to lose to Conor McGregor. We have the next 6 activities. We won't even call them fights. 6 activities playing for Conor McGregor. They have nothing planned for Cowboy. I do not think Cowboy's going to lay down, but they've given him this fight with the intention of him winning it and going on and probably boxing. I mean, they got Zuffa Boxing that's starting up. They're talking to Floyd Mayweather. They're talking to Pacquiao. They have 6 years planned around the financial stability of Conor McGregor. And if he loses this fight, that all goes to shit. So it has to be a Conor McGregor win. If he wins, I don't think this goes 5 rounds. It's got to be in the first or second, and it's going to have to be by KO. So those are the bets you have to take if you like Conor McGregor.
Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it too. Is you gotta try to think about the way this fight could wind up, ending. And to me, I can only see it ending in 2 ways. I can see Conor McGregor knocking him out, or I see Cerrone, waiting long into the match and wearing him down. And then if it gets to the ground, I think he just has such an advantage there. If it's standing up, though, Conor's going to win this fight if it winds up standing up. And, that's the way he wants it to be. And, I mean, you even saw it at the press conference. He kind of said to him, like, you're going to take me down or we're going to stand and fight. If they stand and fight, that plays into McGregor's hands. So you're going to tell right away how much Cerrone cares about this fight by how he comes out and fights. If he comes out and tries to bang with Conor in the middle of the ring, I'm gonna be banging on that second round knockout if it gets past the first round at that point, because I don't see Cerrone winning the fight that way.
Here's the thing. I think Conor's ground game isn't great, but it's improved tremendously over the last 4 or 5 years, as it had to. I mean, Khabib made him look like a rag doll, but he does that to everybody.
Yeah, that's.
But if Cowboy's going to stand and bang with Justin Gaethje, who has 2 pistons, right and left, why would he not stand with McGregor, who's a lighter fighter? He's, has he done anything with his right? It's really a setup arm to throw that piston of a left. So I don't think, Cowboy takes this to the ground. And the one worrying thing, watching that Gaethje fight back was, Cowboy was never really in the fight. It was a first-round stoppage. But when he was out and they stopped the fight, he didn't know it was over. It was Gaethje actually held back because they're kind of boys. He could have really done some damage because Cowboy was hurt bad. When Cowboy came to and Gaethje had looked at the ref and said, dude, stop this, and hit him one more time, and the guy stopped it. When Cowboy popped up, he had no idea what had happened. And, he's not getting any younger. That's for damn sure. He's been knocked out 3 times in his last 6 fights.
That's why I'm a little worried. Like, I'm a little worried. I'm not saying he's going to take a dive. That's not his style at all. But I'm not sure if he's I mean, again, the guy is older than I am at this point, and I'm
Yeah.
almost 40, I think. So I think he's a little bit past where I am. He's been around for a long time. He's been a great fighter for a long time, but you know, there are very few sports, and one combat sport like MMA, as you get older and you start getting slower and a little weaker, and the gas tank starts dropping, that's not a place you want to be alone in a ring
Mm-mm.
with a dangerous man on the other side who can knock you out. So I just kind of have a feeling that it's going to go, like I said, early on. It just looks like this is set up for an early round knockout by Conor. And if not, like I said, it's going to wind up being something that, I think he could win late if he really wants to bring the gas. But for me, early round knockout for Conor. If it gets past the third, I'm going for Cerrone. And if you guys want to hear more about this fight from guys who are much better at breaking down MMA than I am, like I said, make sure you get over there and check out that Labology with, Mad Lab and our boy Duke here breaking down the entire card, all the fights right there, helping you guys make some money, win some money in daily. So anything you want to add here, Duke, before we sign off?
No, if you're making one bet and you're just going to go to a bar and watch this fight, Conor McGregor to knock him out in the second round is where I'm leaning.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're only going to make one bet and go to the bar and watch the fight, you want to see a knockout because then
Yeah,
you'll be
you
going
do,
to
right?
yeah, that's the way.
Don't bet on a decision.
Yeah, that's you know what? I mean, you might get a couple extra beers out of it, but it's not going to be all that exciting. So
Yeah, true.
bet the knockout. I'm going to go with Duke. We'll go second round knockout for Conor McGregor in this one. Hopefully we're right. And you know what? Hopefully we'll have some of that soccer money that we win earlier in the day to put on it. So for Duke, this is Benny, and this has been another episode of The Opening Line at EliteSportsBetting.com.